I had delivered pizzas for years, and nothing could have prepared me for that fateful night. The rain was pouring down, and thunder rumbled ominously as I pulled up to the address, a decrepit ancient mansion that loomed like a malevolent sentinel in the darkness. As I approached the door, the air grew icy, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. This was no ordinary delivery, and I could feel it in my bones. I rang the doorbell, and after what felt like an eternity, the massive oak door creaked open, revealing a frail, elderly woman. She looked like she had walked out of another era, her eyes filled with a sorrow that sent shivers down my spine. She took the pizza from my trembling hands and handed me a crumpled wad of cash. Her voice was barely more than a whisper as she said, "Thank you, young man. You've brought a morsel of comfort to an old soul." As I turned to leave, I heard a strange sound, a faint, mournful melody that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the mansion. I couldn't help but look back, my curiosity getting the best of me. The woman noticed my gaze and offered a frail smile. "Would you like to hear a story, dear boy?" she asked. Intrigued and, I'll admit, a little unnerved, I nodded. She invited me inside, and as I stepped over the threshold, a chill settled over me. She led me into a dimly lit room adorned with faded portraits and ancient relics. The room felt as if it had been frozen in time, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a guest in a haunted museum. The woman began to speak, her voice barely audible. She told me of a tragedy that had befallen her family, a curse that had plagued them for generations. It seemed that her ancestors had made a pact with a malevolent entity, and now it sought retribution. She explained that the curse had taken the form of a never-ending hunger, a hunger that could only be appeased by the delivery of a single pizza each and every night. I listened in horrified fascination as she revealed that she was the last surviving member of her family, burdened with the responsibility of fulfilling the curse's demands, and she had been doing so for decades. As she spoke, the mournful melody grew louder, filling the room with an otherworldly presence. I could feel the curse's hunger, its insatiable appetite, and I knew that I was now entwined in its sinister web. Desperation gripped me as I realized the unique problem at hand: how to break a curse that had haunted a family for generations, and how to escape the grasp of the malevolent entity that hungered for its nightly pizza. Together, we concocted a plan, a unique solution that involved confronting the entity head-on. We would offer it the one thing it desired most, a chance at redemption. With trembling hands, we set up a makeshift seance, calling upon the entity to reveal itself. The room grew cold, and the mournful melody swirled around us as a shadowy figure materialized before our eyes. The entity was a grotesque, writhing mass of darkness, its hunger palpable. But we were determined to offer it a way out, a way to break the cycle of suffering. The elderly woman pleaded with the entity, offering her own soul in exchange for her family's freedom. The entity hesitated, its form shifting and contorting as it considered the offer. In that moment, I realized that our unique solution had worked. The entity, driven by a desire for redemption, accepted the woman's sacrifice, and with a deafening wail, it dissipated into the night. The curse was broken, and the mansion fell silent, the mournful melody fading into oblivion. The woman, now free from the burden that had haunted her family for so long, wept tears of relief and gratitude. As I left the mansion that night, I couldn't help but feel that I had played a part in a story that defied explanation, a tale of curses, sacrifices, and redemption. It was a night I would never forget, a night when the line between the ordinary and the supernatural had blurred, and a hunger that could never be satisfied had been laid to rest. It was a stormy night, and the howling wind seemed to echo my unease as I navigated the deserted streets. I was on my way to deliver a pizza, but little did I know that this particular delivery would lead me down a terrifying path. The address led me to a remote, run-down mansion nestled deep in the woods. It looked abandoned, its windows shattered, and ivy consuming its walls. The front gate creaked open, seemingly on its own, urging me to enter. As I approached the door, a shiver ran down my spine. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I rang the doorbell, and after an agonizing silence, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit, cavernous hallway. Inside, a woman awaited me. She was young, with hollow eyes and disheveled hair. Her clothes were tattered, and she seemed lost in a daze. She took the pizza from me with trembling hands, her eyes never leaving mine. I was about to leave when she suddenly grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She leaned in close, her breath cold and her voice a desperate whisper. "Please, you have to help me. He's coming." Confusion and fear coursed through me as I asked, "Who's coming?" But before she could respond, an otherworldly howl echoed through the mansion. It was a sound that seemed to come from the depths of hell, chilling me to my core. She pulled me inside, slamming the door shut, and began to explain the unbelievable. She had ordered the pizza as a desperate ploy to bring someone, anyone, to the mansion. She claimed that the mansion was cursed, and every night, a malevolent entity known as the Midnight Special would hunt her down. I scoffed at the idea of curses and entities, but then I heard it. The sound of heavy, dragging footsteps and unearthly whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The woman led me through the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, the shadows closing in around us. She spoke of the curse's origin, a vengeful spirit bound to the mansion by a dark ritual. The only way to break the curse was to survive until sunrise. We barricaded ourselves in a room, our only defense against the approaching malevolence. The woman's terror was palpable, and I knew that our lives hung in the balance. As the night wore on, the mansion came alive with the presence of the entity. It whispered promises of torment and despair, scratching at the door with invisible claws. Hours crawled by, and as the first light of dawn crept through the shattered windows, the entity's power began to wane. It let out one final, blood-curdling howl before retreating into the depths of the mansion, never to be heard from again. With the curse broken, the woman and I stumbled out of the mansion, our bodies battered and our minds scarred. I left the pizza behind, a forgotten offering to the malevolence that once haunted those cursed halls. As I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder if what we had experienced was real or merely a product of fear and superstition. But one thing was certain. Some horrors were best left unexplained, and that night's pizza delivery had taken me to the very edge of the supernatural. I was used to delivering pizzas to strange places, but nothing could have prepared me for the night when I received a cryptic order that would plunge me into a nightmare beyond imagination. The order came through just before closing time, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen. The address was a derelict building on the outskirts of town, a place that had long been abandoned and was rumored to be haunted. The note accompanying the order simply read, "Deliver to the basement." As I drove to the address, a sense of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. The building loomed before me, its windows shattered, and the moonlight casting eerie shadows across its decaying facade. I cautiously made my way inside, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The building was a labyrinth of dark corridors and creaking floors, and the air was heavy with a strange metallic scent. Following the cryptic instructions, I descended into the basement, a place that seemed to exist in perpetual darkness. My flashlight revealed rows of old wooden crates, covered in cobwebs and decay. At the center of the room, a single unlit candle sat atop a crate, and beside it lay a note. I picked up the note and read its chilling message. "They're coming. You must hide." Panic surged through me as I heard a distant, guttural growl from the shadows. I had no time to think. I had to find a hiding place. I squeezed myself into a narrow gap between two crates, just as a pack of grotesque, otherworldly creatures emerged from the darkness. They were unlike anything I had ever seen, humanoid, with twisted, elongated limbs and hollow, featureless faces. They moved with an unnatural, jerky gait, their eyes glowing with malevolence. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't find me. Their footsteps grew closer, and I could feel their icy breath on my neck. It was as if they were searching for something that had been brought here by the Cryptic Order. Hours passed, but it felt like an eternity. The creatures eventually retreated, their growls fading into the distance. I cautiously emerged from my hiding place, my heart pounding with fear. I made my way back to the basement entrance and found the door had vanished, leaving me trapped in this nightmarish place. The only way out was through a narrow, claustrophobic tunnel that led deeper into the darkness. With no other choice, I ventured into the tunnel, my flashlight barely piercing the inky blackness. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in around me. As I continued, I came across a chamber filled with ancient, rusted chains and shackles. The walls were adorned with disturbing, grotesque symbols. It was clear that this place had been used for unspeakable rituals. I knew that I had to find a way out, but the tunnel seemed to stretch on endlessly. The sense of isolation and hopelessness weighed on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then, I heard it. A haunting, mournful wail that sent shivers down my spine. It was a sound that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth, a sound that spoke of unspeakable suffering and torment. As I continued to navigate the labyrinthine tunnels, I couldn't help but wonder who had placed that cryptic order and what had brought me to this accursed place. But one thing was certain: I had ventured into a nightmare from which there might be no escape.